is our NFL insider. You can follow him on X for free at Caplan NFL. He's covered the league for almost 30 years. He's been on SportsGrid with me for 5 years. He's undeniable, unequaled by his peers. And he's on Coast to Coast regularly and on the grid regularly. You can catch him all over the place on SportsGrid. Thank God for that. And you can even follow him on the SportsGrid app. So, Adam, why don't we start with the Steeler story coming out of Pittsburgh with Sutton, who's having a bad day.
Yeah, so Cam Sutton, the veteran corner who the Lions cut earlier this offseason due to a off-the-field domestic violence issue. So Sutton signed a 1-year minimum deal. Today he was suspended. The Steelers were notified. He knew it was coming. It's not a secret. It's not 6 games. That's the baseline for domestic violence or a violation of the personal conduct policy. It's 8 games, not weeks. It's actual games. So he could practice with the team in training camp. He actually can play in the preseason. Once the team sets its initial 53-man roster, he goes what's called on the reserve suspended list. So he doesn't count against the roster. They could replace him on the roster. After he serves the 8 games, they would have to make room for him to put him back on the roster. What they'll do, and they made a trade for Dante Jackson. He was acquired in the Deontay Johnson trade with the Panthers. Dante Jackson was expected to start anyway, and Sutton with being the third outside corner. So their depth at the outside corner position is impacted by this situation with Sutton out for 8 games. This is an issue. Look, Corey Trice, by the way, who was the 7th rounder last year. They really like it. He suffered a torn ACL. He's doing well, I'm told. That's a guy to watch in training camp. He's got a real shot, not only to make the team, but to contribute.
I mean, besides Minka and Joey Porter Jr., again, this is their issue. People always say it's their offensive coordinator, it's their offense, they're so boring, this and that. But the reality is it's the back end of their defenses that has been killing them the last couple of years. They can't stop anybody. They got 1 or 2 guys, and that's it. It's not enough.
Yeah, it's the cornerback position. It's been the problem. And Joey Porter Jr. will be a full-time starter now. No question about it. He's their best corner. So that's something to look at. You're right. Those teams will spread him out. But Mick is back from his injury. Watt's back from his injury. They're a little bit older on their front, but this is going to be a good defense. But when you try to beat the Steelers, you don't run it. You throw the football. You and I probably would agree on that.
All right, let's do it. We're going to break down the AFC East today. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. Yeah.
All right, so this is for training camp, right? So the Bills, you and I have talked about the Bills this offseason. It's really interesting. So their win total, the over at 9.5 is minus 160. Clearly, the odds makers think that they'll do that. In fact, most people do. That's why the number is what it is. The under, by the way, is plus 130 at 9.5. Now, to win the East, it's plus 165. If you like them, now's the time to get in on them. Now, the offense is going to change a little bit. Joe Brady, the offense coordinator who took over for Ken Dorsey, who was fired during the season, there'll never be a run offense. Let's clear this up because there's too much misinformation out there. But they'll run the ball more than we've been used to with Josh Allen being the quarterback. There's still going to be a spread offense. That's going to happen. They're not the deepest team at wide receiver. The starters there. Keon Coleman, they're excited about, who'll be their ex-receiver. Curtis Samuel, they know him a little bit. They did a lot of work on him. He'll share time with Khalil Shakir at that number 2 spot. Samuel is probably going to play a little bit more. They're not super deep at tight end, but they're deep enough with their 2 guys. Kincaid's the guy to watch. The offensive line's undergone a couple changes, but Pharrell, the issue with the Bills is on defense. I'm not really worried about their offense. I'm worried about their defense. Lack of a pass rush did them in last season. They're going to have 2 new starting safeties, 1 new starting outside corner. They need to get the pass rush back, but Carver High's favorite player, Matt Milano's back at linebacker. And, man, did they miss him when he suffered that serious leg injury.
They lost a lot of star players, and their back end is right now a problem. It's a weakness, and at some point, somebody just has to say it. Von Miller was terrible last year. What makes anyone think he's going to be better this year? He looks shot.
And he's 35, which he turned in March, and he was coming back from an ACL injury. He took a pay cut. He's in the twilight of his career. Greg Russo's back. They have to figure out how they're going to get to the quarterback. That is a problem. They're not a big blitz team, by the way. They're a big zone defensive team. It's going to be hard. That's to me. That is why, to me, the Bills should not be the favorite. I know they're the odds makers' favorite and the fans' favorite because people are still loading up on the Bills, but the team we got number 2 here, the Jets, they're the team that I think is going to upset the Bills for this division.
So you're going to take the Jets to win the division, it sounds like what I just heard. And we know for a fact that this team, I've always said, I've been here 25 years. Every year I read the same thing in August. The Jets and the Giants are going to the Super Bowl. Every year the same thing. That, gangrene this, gangrene that, big blue. Oh, God. And they both stink. And all I've heard is that the Jets are going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets are loaded, and the Jets are the Jets stink, and their coach stinks. Their coaching staff stinks. And then their quarterback played for 5 seconds. But now everyone's got him going to the Super Bowl. And you too?
I don't know about Super Bowl, but here's the deal. The over is minus 150 at 9.5, by the way. 9.5 wins is the number. The under is plus 125. And to win the division, it's plus 190. Still the Bills a small favorite. You mentioned Rodgers. He's back. He looked fine in OTAs. Got to protect him. They redid their offensive line. 2 new starters to tackle. They're older, though. Tyron Smith is their left tackle. You hope he holds up. They spent the first-round pick on an offensive lineman, Fashanu. We'll see how he does. On the right side is, they brought back Morgan Moses. 3 new starters, 2 tackles. So we'll see how that holds up. That does concern me, but the protection will be better. Defensively, they're phenomenal, possibly Pharrell. The NFL's best defense. They're terrific on defense. Not great at safety.
Phenomenal.
Great at corner. Great front, and they add Hassan Reddick. If Rodgers plays at least 14 out of the 17 games, they are locked to win that division. You heard it here first.
If their defense is so phenomenal, how come they never win?
Quarterback, man. You saw what happened last season. They didn't have a good backup. Now they got Tyrod Taylor, who's a little bit better than what they had.
All right, I've heard it all. I'm gonna hurl. Okay, I'm gonna remember this. I think the Dolphins are gonna be a problem for everyone in this division.
Well, offensively, it's not the problem. They're working on Tua's contract. We'll see if it gets done before training camp starts. Their win total also 9.5. The over's minus 135. So on your point, it's really tight between the other 2 teams and them. The under 9.5 is plus 110. So clearly, the odds makers think this thing's going over 9.5. They'll bring back the same offensive personnel. OBJ's in there as their 3rd receiver, where it was a problem last season, so they've upgraded there. 2 new starters on the offensive line, left guard. The big issue for them is new defense coordinator Anthony Weaver, and a lot of new personnel on defense. Got 5 new starters. That's a concern. That's why they're the number 3 team for me in that division.
Well, I'll believe it when I see it. I think they're going to be a tough team. They made the playoffs. They lose in the playoffs. They got to learn how to win in the playoffs. They always fail when they get to the postseason. And speaking of failing, the Patriots are going to fail miserably.
4.5 win total, over minus 160. The under is plus 130. To win the division, the longest odds of any 30 of the 32 teams, plus 2,500. That tells you all you need to know. New quarterback, Drake May, unlikely to start their first-round pick at the beginning of the season. Eventually, he'll start in season, but that's why they got Jacoby Brissett. They lack a true number 1 receiver. Defensively, super competitive. They're going to run the same scheme under Gerard Mayo. The defense won't be the problem. They get Christian Gonzalez back, their first-round pick at corner from his injury. Offensively, Scott, they're going to have trouble scoring. They're a 5 to 6 win team for me. Actually, I kind of like the over 4.5, but it is telling when they only have 4.5 win total.